What's cracking, y'all? You are now watching Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today. What up? The beginning of the NBA season is on the horizon, and people are already falling in love with Victor Wembanyama from his preseason performances if they weren't already in love with him before. So while browsing YouTube, I seen a couple of YouTubers that I watch, some big time YouTubers, already putting out Victor Wembanyama content and giving their opinions on it. So what I've decided to do is watch 3 of these videos. One from Johnny Arnett called "The League Is Not Ready." Another one from Hoop Venue called "Why the NBA is Terrified of Victor Wembanyama." And another one from Rusty Buckets titled, I think, "How Wembanyama Will Change the NBA Forever." So we'll watch these 3 and get an idea of what some people are saying about Victor Wembanyama right now at this very moment. Now, I've covered Victor Wembanyama probably as early as about a year ago, actually. Now that I think about it, in the early stages of this channel, with my initial reaction when he was playing over in the European League. And I was like, I've never seen anything quite like this guy, given his size and his abilities. So raw, but already yet so talented and has a good feel for the game. And I think Victor Wembanyama very well could go down as one of the greatest players to ever play the game of basketball. But we'll see what the future has in store for him. His abilities, his athletic abilities, mixed with his athletic stature, or his stature, and might as well say his stature, his size, allows him to do things that many other players that we've ever seen play the game could do. Just his sheer length giving him defensive recovery options and abilities that other players don't have. It's incredible, even on the offensive end. But let's start with these videos, and we'll get it cracking with Hoop Venue. Why the NBA is Terrified of Victor Wembanyama. Followed by Johnny Arnett, and then followed by Rusty Buckets. All right, let's get into it.
Victor Wembanyama has played a grand total of 42 minutes and 13 seconds of preseason basketball, yet he's already done multiple things that have never been seen on an NBA court. How many times can you recall a player initiating the offense, getting into a give and go, having a lob thrown to them while their foot is still touching the three-point line, and the possession ends with them dunking the ball? Or how about a guy who's defending their man at the top of the key, completely hyperextends his body to reach into a driving lane while covering about 8 feet of space, and gets a hand on the ball to force a turnover? Hang on, let's run that one back for just a quick moment. Do you know what this means? In recent years, we've seen a significant emphasis on the aggressive gapping style of defense. It's essentially a zone, but while keeping man-to-man matchups. Teams like the Heat, Celtics, and Warriors, among many others, have implemented these helping principles, sitting early in driving lanes and forcing ball handlers to make tough reads over the top, then rotating to turn away any potential threats. One of the best ways to attack this as an offense is by having a guy spotted up just one pass away who can not only demand closeouts, but put the ball on the floor and pressure the rim, putting the defense into a scramble. For that exact reason, a rule of thumb that you've probably learned at any level of competitive basketball is to not help on the ball from just one pass away because of how hard it is to recover to your man without collapsing the rest of the defense. When it comes to Wembanyama though, forget everything you've ever learned about help defense, because if he's gapping off of his man to shut off the middle of the floor from just one pass away, except he's so agile and lengthy that his man getting the ball isn't even an advantage, we're reaching unmarked territory. This would completely warp the dynamic of offenses. Driving and passing the ball all of a sudden become extremely difficult, and the problem is that if teams try to keep him away from the middle by putting his man in the corner or in screening action, then he's on the back line and in a better position to rotate down to the rim. Because the guy is 7'4" with an 8-foot wingspan, when he's in position, it's like trying to score with a wall planted in front of the basket. And it's not just the size, he's also light on his feet and quick to get off the floor, so you'll have plays like this where he's under the basket tagging a roller, and as soon as the ball gets moved to his man on the baseline, in just 2 steps he's sending that thing to the crowd. Shots just straight up aren't getting over him, which is why in his last season in Paris he averaged 3 blocks per game, nearly doubling the second place finisher at 1.6. Because of the fluidity in his movements at that size, he can consistently cover multiple threats simultaneously. When Highsmith makes this pass to Kane under the basket, Wemby's on the opposite block. He rotates down and shows his length to make Kane think twice about putting up a shot, and when it gets moved to Thomas Bryant on a baseline cut, he turns his body while tracking the ball and just obliterates a layup. He pairs these freakish physical tools with an unreal motor and constant activity. If you just focus on watching him on any given possession, he's always hopping around, sliding up and down, repositioning and angling his body so that he can get into the best possible position to turn away any threats. The mental aspect of recognizing those threats and how to best react is also there. This time he's defending a screening action between Robinson and Bryant, but when Drew Smith drives, Wemby moves on a string to shut off that lane and save what could have been a free 2 points. When everything comes together like this, the awareness to recognize threats, the mobility to get into position, and the size and length to protect the rim, you get these possessions where he's able to just completely shut off the paint as a one-man defense. Most of the time, guys won't even test him around the basket, and what that does to a team's shot quality can't possibly be overstated. Take this play for example. After a turnover on the inbound, Highsmith is left with a runway to the basket, but with Wemby there, he chooses to not even look at the hoop, so by just simply standing there, he changes everything. This concept will turn him into one of the game's best drop bigs, making ball handlers think twice about driving and forcing them to settle for much lower percentage mid-range jumpers. So he has the more traditional anchoring big skill set down, but because of how well he moves, he's also capable of defending out in space. For one, there's just no shooting over his contests, but I do think his footwork on the perimeter is still pretty awkward. He won't always take the best angles on closeouts, and he isn't great at sliding his feet laterally to take away driving lanes, which does leave him somewhat vulnerable for the time being. This is something that I definitely expect to improve with more experience, but also because he has those one-of-one tools, when he is beat off the dribble, he's almost always able to recover. Here's a play that starts with those breaking of the rules I talked about, covering an obscene amount of space as he both tags a roll and remains in position to effectively close out just one pass away. Then Highsmith is going to isolate, hesitating before driving as he gets the step on Wemby, and just take a look at this. Both of his feet are on the ground and he's facing the wrong direction when a shot goes up, and in one motion it's another one of his 4 blocks against the Heat. Again, you'll see possessions where it all comes together and he's defending multiple players, stepping over a potential screen and sticking with Jalen Williams on a drive, then hanging around the lane so that when his teammate gets beat on a closeout, instead of a paint touch, the result is a long 2. In my personal opinion, all of the evidence we can collect up to this point suggests Victor being a once-in-a-generation defensive talent. You can see the makings of a paint presence and deterrent like Rudy Gobert, but with even more size and length, the shot blocking of a Jaren Jackson Jr., and he can move, switch, eat up space in different coverages on the perimeter. That's a freakish defensive talent if it all comes together, a multi-time defensive player of the year type of guy. And with all of that, it's still the offensive side of things that's most intriguing. One of the first things I always look for when scouting young players is how they move without the ball, even when they're not directly involved in the action. It's a great way to understand their overall feel for the game, and I'd be lying if I said that Wemby doesn't have some of the most impressive instincts for filling out space that I've ever seen from someone of his age. If you watch him on any given possession, he's constantly repositioning himself, screening to keep the defense engaged, making himself available for easy passes, or clearing out to free up room for teammates to attack. Just always looking for a way to improve offensive possessions, even if he's not touching the ball.
Yep.
And high feel, active movement also unlocks a lot of easy offense for the player doing it. Charles Bassey holds the ball near the top of the key, appearing to set up a dribble handoff for the big man, but instead of getting into the action, he's gonna jab while using a hand sweep to create separation on a backdoor cut, which leads to an easy lob target and a pair of free throws. Because he's so huge, getting him the ball is super easy, and if he's able to catch it within the same area code as the basket, it's pretty much guaranteed to end in 2 points. You remember Michael Jordan's game-winning dunk in the original Space Jam movie? That's just another play for Victor Wembanyama. That unrivaled length is at its deadliest in the open floor. Look at where he's at when he receives a pass, just a few inches in from the three-point line, and without taking a single dribble, he's galloping his way into an emphatic dunk. Here's one that starts in semi-transition. He's going to receive a handoff that leaves him with space on the baseline to attack on a drive, and when he gets cut off by Chet Holmgren, he's just going to extend his arm and wrap a pass around the help to Zach Collins, who draws a foul down low. In the half court, there's no shortage of ways that he can be weaponized, and I'd expect Greg Popovich to squeeze out every possible play. As a screener, he's a threat to get downhill or above the rim, and again is just such a massive target that ball handlers can just toss it anywhere near the basket, and he's more than likely to come down with it. Not just that, but because of the outside shooting threat, he can also pop out to the perimeter, meaning that drop coverage is no longer a good option. There's no way of knowing what his three-point percentage will look like at the NBA level, but what I will say is that the confidence in which he pulls and the versatility really stand out. Here goes an inbounds play that starts him on the weak side block, and he's gonna flash to the top of the key. Because he has the highest release point, maybe ever, room for error in defending him on the perimeter isn't just minimal, it's non-existent. This time he starts all the way in the corner and uses a little curl screen to move into a dribble handoff. Because he gets chased over the top, he's going to take one dribble while sidestepping to his left, and did I mention he's listed at 7'4"? Because he's virtually uncontestable, that means defenders are forced to close out with a lot more aggression than what you'll find in the average shooter, which then opens up his game off the catch, faking and driving right, counter spinning back to his left, taking off vertically, only to scoop a layup around rim protection for 2. He's a nightmare to contain off the catch, so naturally the Spurs have been looking for ways to get him going off of movement. Focus on how exaggerated the motion of sliding his feet is, and that's so when he lands, he's a threat to take off in either direction. This time he goes through with the screen to his left, gets to the free throw line, and that leaves him with all the time in the world to set his feet for a mid-range jumper. Here's the exact same action, and remember I told you to watch the feet slide because now he's going to reject the screen and attack right, take one dribble and up fake to get his defender off the floor, creating a decent look, which probably should have been called for a landing space foul, and although he's unable to convert, I really like the process behind that creation. Whenever he has the ball in his hands, I just can't get over the fluidity he moves and handles with at that size. Throwing a jab right, then a left hand hesitation straight into a tween to get the step going downhill, and the headbutt is a little bit questionable, but it gets the job done. Typically when you have these 7'4", 7'5" bigs entering the league, they're clunky with their movements and footwork or just outright slow. But the coordination and balance you see with Wembanyama as he turns his body and changes directions or speeds is unlike anything we've ever seen before. That's without even mentioning the things he's capable of doing as a ball handler on top of that. This play nearly broke social media where he comes off a screen, goes in and out straight into a tween to create a left-hand drive, then steps back into an off-balance follow-away jumper. What I will say is that by the nature of having that much length, it's a lot tougher for him to secure the ball or make really tight movements, so he is prone to a fair share of live ball turnovers.
Yeah.
Wings are usually able to get right up under him and kind of dictate where he goes with the ball, and while this will always be somewhat of a limitation, I do think by improving his core strength and of course just getting more reps against NBA level defense, some of these errors can be weeded out and we'll see some more efficient movement with the ball in his hands. For these reasons, as of right now, I kind of like him more as a standstill creator, running him off of screens inside the arc so that he can either face up and isolate or turn his back to the basket. I think Wemby has the tools to develop into one of the game's most lethal mid-range assassins. Because of the height and release point, there's not really such a thing as a bad shot, and it gives him unlimited access to jumpers from literally every single spot on the floor. The touch and comfort are already apparent, and we kind of saw what he's capable of doing from this area of the floor as he torched Miami. As for his post game, that's another thing that I think still has a lot of room for improvement, primarily with what I talked about in regards to his core strength.
Yeah.
I think the moves are in his bag, but he can get bumped off his spot or lose control pretty easily. With that said, he's still an imminent threat when he gets the ball that close to the basket, and his ability to attack mismatches is going to turn him into a foul drawing machine. Last year, he shot just under 83% from the line, and that's a stat that typically translates almost at a 1-to-1 ratio because nothing's actually changing. And this speaks to a broader topic, and that's just how ridiculously efficient Wembanyama can be from day one. I talked about the off-ball movement that sets him up for easy opportunities, the unlimited access to quality mid-range jumpers, his versatility and touch as a finisher around the rim, the volume three-point shooting, and if you add in a large sum of free throws that he's hitting at an 80% or higher clip, that's rounding out to be a pretty bulletproof scoring arsenal. As a result, even in just a couple preseason games, we're seeing teams load up on him as soon as he touches the ball. And not only is he willing, but he's a skilled enough passer to consistently punish this extra defensive attention. He has an eagle-eyed view of the court from over the top, so naturally double teams don't actually cloud his vision in any way. He can see where everyone's at and knows how to counter. Not only that, but he's already experimenting and trying to make finds through impossibly tight windows. And for his upcoming rookie season, I'd like to see as many of these high-risk, high-reward attempts as he can possibly conjure up, because if he gets comfortable picking apart defenses out of the post or from the elbow as an initiator,
Good luck.
I'm not sure what defenses are supposed to do. Although, it'll be a process of trial and error, as his accuracy can be pretty hit or miss at times. When it comes to Victor's overall game, what keeps coming back to my mind is just how much he can make his presence felt. Whether it's with his shooting and spacing, the big time finishing, the rim protection or court coverage on defense, very rarely do we get a guy who's capable of making an impact on quite literally every single possession. And I know it's just the preseason, but that's exactly what he was doing. I think the offense will be a bit of a learning curve in some areas, but he seems ready to get some all-defensive attention right now, so I just can't wait to see him make his debut, and ultimately how he continues to evolve as the generational prospect he's made out to be. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of Wembanyama. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Hoop Venue. Hoop Venue is the YouTuber/YouTube channel. Yeah, I agree with everything he just said, and he touched on
his body, but his strength.
He touched on some of my points there anyway. So, what's up, Larry? I don't know why the Larry Bird video play. Oh, because it's in one of my playlists called Watch Later, and that Larry Bird video, which we already reacted to. So go check it out. It's a great Larry Bird interview. Go check it out in our Larry Bird playlist. You can't miss it. But anyway, yeah, he touched on some of the points I made. But yeah, Victor, the scary part is he still has so much more room to grow. He still has so much to learn. And, I was going to mention that too about just his body getting stronger, especially his core. Once I know Popovich is gonna show him the ropes, man. Make him a threat from everywhere on the court, especially in that low post area. It's not even worth double teaming this guy. Once he gets the passing all the way down, it's not even worth double teaming because you're not gonna be able to affect his like he says line of sight. He's just way too damn tall, way too damn tall. So unless you can get low and get your hand on the ball quickly, it's not worth it. And yeah, and I've said this in another video about Victor Wembanyama. The last Victor Wembanyama video I put out was that he's going to get caught in some tight spots with his low dribble. Actually his high dribble, but the players are going to be so much smaller than him. It's going to be easy for them to swipe him at the bottom and steal the ball. Now, when he crouches down and gets down lower, his ball handling will be a bit tighter, and he'll have more control and can keep it away from the smaller players. But you can definitely expect him to be a turnover machine at times when he's face-up dribbling, playing more of a point guard position, trying to put the ball on the floor from the top and working his way down. But like I said, once his body gets stronger and he learns the pace of the game and the defenses of the NBA, he'll get even better. And right now it already seems like, I don't want to say easy for him, but for lack of a better word, easy for him, with him still just being raw talent, right? So he will get fine-tuned, and he's going to learn a lot, and he's going to expand his game and expand the options for the San Antonio Spurs when he's on the floor. All right, let's get into the next video by our boy, Johnny Arnett. The league is not ready.
Alright, I've seen enough to be thoroughly impressed, and I just had to make a video. There has been a lot of interesting developments in the NBA preseason, and as a basketball fan, this is probably the most excited I've been for an upcoming NBA season in a long time. By far, what's captured my attention the most is the preseason play of Victor Wembanyama. Listen, I know some people like to criticize others for overreacting to events in the preseason, and although I get that criticism, I'm kind of a big believer in the fact that you can have some serious takeaways from how the teams play on the court, even in exhibition situations.
Yes.
As a Lakers fan, I know this full well. I remember when the Lakers acquired Dwight Howard and Steve Nash in 2012 to play alongside of Kobe and Pau Gasol. Everyone was hyped for the season, but then the team proceeded to go 0-8 in the preseason, as nothing was working on the court. Everyone was acting as if no one should panic because, quote, it was only preseason. Well, then the regular season began and everything continued to not work, and the team continued to lose. Just a couple years ago, history repeated itself as the Lakers were being hyped up prior to the preseason starting. The preseason began, they sucked, and everyone said not to panic because it's preseason. And lo and behold, they sucked in the regular season yet again. My point is that sometimes it's not an overreaction to come to certain conclusions during the preseason. Sometimes the preseason play on the court is actually a pretty solid indication of what's coming. And I'm telling you today, what's coming is this young man, Victor Wembanyama. I'll humble myself enough to admit that I thought this kid would be good, but I didn't think he would be this good this quickly. Specifically, his ball handling skills and his fundamentals are shining like crazy, and his incredible size and length are just a massive bonus. In his first 2 preseason games, he's averaged 21.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 2 assists on 64% shooting in only 21 minutes of action per game. In only his first 2 career starts, he's averaging over 36 points in his per 36 minutes stats. That's not just the numbers of a breakout rookie, but that's the production levels of an MVP candidate. I'm not saying that this kid is definitely going to maintain that. Very few rookies have been able to make the game look so easy in their first couple of starts. I imagine this kid is going to keep Greg Popovich feeling young for the next 5 years. as I can't possibly see him walking away from the game with this phenom on his roster.
No way.
Now, as I've talked about in the past, my biggest concern for Wembanyama is his physical health. In a previous video, I talked about the history of top 3 picks who were at least 7 foot 3 inches tall. Basically, every single one of them had their careers cut short due to injuries. With that being said, there is reason to feel like Victor Wembanyama might be the exception to the rule. In the history of the game, I've never seen a player as tall as he is who could move with the same amount of fluidity and agility. I've never seen a 7'4" player who could take guys off the dribble, put the ball between his legs, and consistently hit step-back jumpers as if he's James Harden with an extra 11 inches. The closest player I've seen to this skill set at this size was Ralph Sampson in the 1980s. But if I'm being honest, I think even that is a little generous to Sampson, who didn't quite have dribbling skills as impressive as Victor's. Hell, just look at Thomas Bryant's reaction to Victor's Space Jam dunk. Remember when veteran NBA players have talked about young guys coming into the league and they were so good that it made them feel like they needed to get out of there and retire? Well, that's what Thomas Bryant's face looked like after Wemby just embarrassed the entire defense. If it sounds like I'm geeking out, it's for good reason. This era of NBA basketball is arguably the most talented era we've ever seen, and the future competition just got that much stiffer, with the addition of what I believe is a shoe-in superstar. For goodness sake, this guy called for an alley-oop pass just a step inside of the three-point line, and he converted it for a dunk. Seriously, how many players can do that in the NBA today? Is there even anyone else? Add in the fact that he's already establishing himself as an intimidating rim protector, and you have the recipe for a terrifying two-way monster. I'm not gonna lie, I would feel more concerned about Wembanyama's ability to dominate at the center position if he was a guy who was drafted in the 1990s, where physically strong and powerful centers ruled the paint. I remember all the footage of Victor getting bullied in the paint by stronger kids before he entered the NBA. But the thing is, the modern professional leagues just aren't playing that way anymore. Even the top centers in the game, like Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, have a very finesse and graceful style to their game. In today's league, we're not worried about Victor having to contain a 350-pound beast like Shaquille O'Neal, but instead, he'll be busy guarding other gangly stretch fives like Kristaps Porzingis. I'm not saying this as a way to slander Victor, but rather I'm acknowledging that the league isn't built to exploit his weaknesses like it once was in the past. And if anything, this will work in favor of his game and of his production. Based on what I'm seeing from him, and based on how the game is played today, there's simply no reason why he can't start dominating the competition in his very first season in the league. Some might worry about Popovich giving him enough minutes, but I don't see why the coach wouldn't, when he once played Tim Duncan an average of 39 minutes in his very first NBA season. In a way, Popovich has been in a similar situation before with a promising young big man, and in that previous scenario, he worked that big man like an ox, as the rookie Duncan finished the regular season in 13th place overall in minutes per game. Now you could argue that Duncan was older and had more college experience, which is certainly true, but based on what we've seen in the preseason so far, you can't possibly convince me that Wemby isn't fully ready for the NBA competition and ready to produce at a high level, and I'm sure Coach Pop views him the same way. The good news is that there's hardly any pressure on this kid. He's still only 19 years old, and the Spurs have embraced the idea of a rebuild. With this insanely stacked Western Conference, no one is expecting the Spurs to be contenders anytime soon. Victor will have the luxury of being able to protect his health and focus on developing his game at his own natural pace. With all of that being said, I don't think patience is something this kid is worried about, because if these first two games are any indication, the league needs to be preparing itself, because a new unicorn just arrived, and he's not going easy on any of these smaller competitors. So what do you guys think? Am I making too much out of his first 2 debut games? Or do you agree with me that this kid is basically a shoo-in superstar, assuming he stays healthy? I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Yeah, if he played, no question about it. If he played the 90s, early to mid-ish 2000s, when you still had real bigs out there pounding, yeah, Shaq would break this guy in half before the first quarter's over. Wembanyama would be bruised from head to toe. Hurting, you feel me? But like you said, this is the same thing that agitates me with Anthony Davis, is that Anthony Davis, the tallest guy on the floor, in this small ball lineup with all these small players, doesn't want to play inside and dominate. When he's in the perfect environment for somebody of his stature and of his skill set to dominate in the paint, but he won't do it. So what I've seen from Victor already, he's more comfortable playing around the basket than the paint. So, but Victor is more skilled than Anthony Davis. Obviously, I'm not saying he's better than Anthony Davis right now. Give him a year. I'm not big on AD. I think Anthony Davis is overrated anyway. But from what I've seen him do around the basket, he already has a comfort level there that Anthony Davis doesn't have, or probably has never had. But you know, he hasn't had any major injuries when he was playing in Europe, so I don't expect him to be injury prone, because he brings up a good point. Usually players with his build that tall are usually injury prone and have their careers shortened. Yao Ming, what's the boy? The guy that was 19, 20 years old but looked like an old man. Greg Oden. I think Manute Bol, you can even throw him in there. And we've had some other really tall players come to the league, but sky's the limit for this kid. It really is. Before Victor Wembanyama got drafted, I'm talking way before, I had put out like 1 or 2 videos basically saying that I did not want the San Antonio Spurs to get Victor Wembanyama. This is before the lottery. It's before the draft and before the lottery. And I had put out a video saying I hope the Spurs don't get him, because I'm worried about Greg Popovich limiting his minutes, limiting his exposure, and suppressing so many of his abilities, like I've seen Greg Popovich do with many players. That was my big concern. I was like, I want this kid to come in the league and just put him out there and show the world what he can do. I'm not saying be a ball hog, play within the team, but let this kid shine to his maximum potential. And I had some concerns that Greg Popovich might limit what he can do, but we'll see. He brought up that good point about Tim Duncan, and that's a valid point, so we'll see. All right. Thank you, Johnny Arnett. Let's get into Rusty Buckets.
Are you seeing this?
Look at this. Pick and pop from 3, Wembanyama. Season ago, that changes with this guy. Always fun to watch. Wembanyama over Bryant.
No, for real. Are you seeing this?
It's an interception deflection. Sohan. Wembanyama! Power forward to center. Look at this.
I can't emphasize this enough. Are you seeing this?
Off the screen from Osman. Oh, with a nice little dribble right there. Shaking. Bang! Rocketing down the lane. Handing to Wembanyama. Goes on Robinson. Double by Kane. He spins one up.
This dude's not real. I know it's just preseason, but I've seen all I need to see. This guy's not real. Victor Wembanyama. Basketball's never going to be the same. It's never going to be the same. Let's talk about it. Real quick before I get into this video, if you end up enjoying it, please be sure to subscribe. Also drop a like. It only takes 1 second. It makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. So today, I'm a little bit late on it, but I have to talk about Victor Wembanyama. Now, I normally try not to make videos specifically about the preseason. I obviously acknowledge that criticism at the very start, but I think this is more than valid in this particular case. Because yes, this is preseason and players are not trying as hard, and I'm sure Victor Wembanyama will be far less deadly in a regular season setting. That's all probably true. However, Victor, across his 2 preseason games, has displayed a level of ability that is just, not even just a level of ability, but a type of ability that is just entirely foreign to my conceptions of basketball. Now, the first thing that's really interesting to me about all of this is just how much more effective, how much better Victor has looked in this preseason setting versus how he looked in the summer league. When I went and saw Victor in person in Las Vegas, I made the point that summer league offenses have very little structure to them, and play finishing types of players really do not thrive in them. It's far more like isolation heavy, really ball handling heavy guys. And as a result, Victor didn't necessarily shine all that much. He had a good second game, a very bad first game. Overall though, his performance was, I'd say, mildly underwhelming, and enough reason to maybe be a little bit reserved about how good he was actually going to be in his rookie year. However, in this setting with the Spurs, surrounded by actual NBA players and under a system implemented by Greg Popovich that utilizes him to his fullest strength, I think he's actually going to be even better than I initially thought. First things first, let's talk about the defense. This guy might already be a top 10 defender in the NBA. I believe one of my hot takes in my hot takes for this season video was that Victor would be a top 10 defender in the NBA immediately. That's starting to feel less like a hot take and just a genuine, reserved, fairly lukewarm perspective, because this guy is ridiculous. Defense is all about taking away space from the offense, and in the case of Wemby, he just destroys any semblance of what space even is. Not only does he have the length to cover a lot of area in the area that he's in, but he has the speed to make the area that he is in fucking everywhere, it feels like. The amount of possessions, especially against the Miami Heat, where it felt like he covered the entire ground in just a split second. And then, like, not only does it help that he can just get to the right spot at the right time to bring help defense, but also if he makes a mistake, he has the length and he has the speed to recover from that mistake and still alter the shot of whoever may get by him. Defensively, dude is ridiculous, and he's probably going to go down as, fuck the word probably. Unless injuries are a problem, Victor is going to go down as one of the best defensive players of all time. I'm very, very confident in that, and I'm quite confident that it's going to be obviously excellent defense from the get-go. But let's move to the offense, because that's what's more surprising to me. I realize I just said that a rookie is going to be a top 10 defender in the league, but that's something I felt for a while. The conclusion I've gotten from this preseason has been he's going to be a better offensive player than I thought pretty early on as well. Now, do I necessarily expect him to be putting up 23 points in 23 minutes type of level of production on a regular basis? Definitely not. I don't expect him to shoot 10 for 15 regularly, but I do think that he has showcased actual ability within the flow of the Spurs offense that is just simply going to be available for him all the time. Now, the first thing that stands out to me from this game against the Miami Heat specifically was his mid-range game. I had understood Wemby to be a very good mid-range shooter and that to be a big part of his game going into the future. However, in those summer league games as well as their first game against OKC, we really didn't see too much of that. In this game, Wemby was going off from mid-range. I feel like he hit like 5 shots from there at least, 3 of them being off of the dribble, and all of them just super, super impressive. The thing most impressive about them, look at this release point. Look at that line. Look at where the basketball is, and look at where the rim is. I don't know if there's there's another player in NBA history that both has this release point and is good enough to take that shot and make that shot pretty much whenever. Like guys like Kevin Durant or Dirk Nowitzki have a very high release point, but I don't think it's quite at the rim and oftentimes above the rim, especially if Wemby gets a good jump on the shot. So I've said this before, but when you're trying to contest a Victor Wembanyama jump shot, you have to jump high enough to dunk the ball in order to put a hand over the ball itself. That's just absurd. It's going to get to the point where people are just contesting him by doing the like hand in your face thing, because putting your hand over the ball is just not going to cut it. It's very difficult to do that. Even if you are someone that can dunk that's guarding him, and casually so, as a lot of big men obviously will be, you still have to get a decent lead up to get that high into the air. So, you know, even someone like Thomas Bryant contesting him just isn't going to get high enough to interrupt the shot in a significant manner. And he seems to be more than comfortable enough with the shot itself to believe that he is going to be hitting them with or without that damn contest. The three-point shooting is something that's probably going to take a little bit longer to come along, and that's the thing that defenses have conceded to Wemby the most by far. But I would not be surprised if 2-3 years into his career, he's pretty freaking deadly from out there as well. Then we got to talk about the guard skills, because obviously it is those skills that was setting up a lot of these mid-range shots, the off of the dribble ones in particular. It's ridiculous to see someone this tall and this long move like that. Looking at the pull-up that he did, where he like took the ball off of the screen and then got to the free throw line and just faded, that shot is ridiculous. Like, that's some Kevin Durant shit. And, you know, it feels like he's almost going to answer the question, like, what if Kevin Durant was even taller, to like a ridiculous degree. So the mid-range shooting is filthy. The dribbling is filthy. He is so good at dribbling the ball at this height, at this length. I'd say he's good at dribbling the ball, period, without that being the case. Normally, when you're that tall, that long, there is a consequence of dribbling the ball, which is there's just a lot more distance between the top of your hand and the ground than it is for like a 6-foot guard, for example. That means when you're defending a taller player that dribbles, you can kind of get under them to try and disrupt them, but his handle is so good and his decision making is so good that it's really not a huge weakness. He's also made great decisions passing the ball. Maybe less just out.
Yeah, so I mentioned that and said that will be problematic for him at times when he dribbles the ball high, and smaller players, I just could say most players, but generally players that are smaller in stature will be able to sideswipe, especially if they send multiple defenders out at him. He will get caught in the rut at times, but I'm not saying he's not good enough to avoid it and get out of it, but it will be problematic for him at times, I believe. Major problem? No, because he doesn't always need to be handling the ball, doing point guard duties the whole time, and I doubt Greg Popovich will run the team like that. At times, sure, but that won't be the norm, especially in a Greg Popovich ran system. But who knows? I could be wrong about all this.
Outright creating the play as you would maybe hope, but in terms of just recognizing when someone is open and making the correct decision, he already seems very well versed in that. There were a couple of different plays in this game where he was double teamed and he made the right read, and being able to make the right read out of a double team is something that a lot of very good NBA players struggle with. The most obvious one that stands out to me, though of course he has gotten better with it, is Joel Embiid. I would say Wemby's already further along in this regard, based on the little I've seen from the preseason, than the guy who just won MVP last year. And then the obvious thing is that the dude is a ridiculous finisher. In this screenshot, you see that Wemby has the ball. He has 1 foot barely in the line. He is going to dunk that ball, and he is not going to put the ball on the floor, and it's going to be completely legal. He caught the ball, takes 2 strides, Euro steps into a dunk. And the thing is, he has so much much height, so much length, that he is oftentimes, and he does this on the alley-oop as well, he's dunking the ball on the way down. A lot of people oftentimes will get their dunk at the apex of their jump, and you have to be an especially good athlete or especially tall and long to be falling down and still finishing that. But he has that height and length that he can jump, start to go downward, and still have plenty of ability to actually dunk the ball. The other dunk that really stands out, probably his most impressive thus far, is his poster dunk on Thomas Bryant. He did a standing poster dunk with his entire body outside of the restricted area. For pretty much any other player, even Giannis, in the position that Wemby was in here, probably doesn't quite dunk that, but he did. You take a look at the face that Thomas Bryant had afterwards as well. He thought he was defending like a hook shot or some type of layup. He wasn't expecting to get dunked on at all. And that's because he's not used to guarding aliens. He's not used to guarding people that just break all conventions of basketball. I said when I watched the Chet versus Wemby game, it felt like I was watching the future of basketball. What Wemby is bringing to the table is something that will forever change the sport and my perspective on the sport. He's done so many things, and so casually as well, that I'm just so perplexed at the fact that they are even possibilities. Being this tall, being this long, that alone is super rare. There are only a couple of players in NBA history that were truly that height, let alone had the mobility that he does. That list is even shorter, maybe literally just a list of one. And the list definitely becomes a list of one when you then factor in the guard skills that he possesses. Victor is a ridiculous basketball player, and I can't even fully grasp what I'm looking at when I watch him. And that's a feeling that I haven't really had in quite a long time. I think literally the last time I can think of where I was like, oh man, this just completely warped my perception of what basketball even is, was when Stephen Curry won MVP the first time and was pulling up the way that he was. And to say that about somebody from a preseason game that is a rookie, to be even in the same breath as that type of thing, shows a lot in terms of what kind of expectations I have, what kind of changes I'm expecting to see. All I can be is dumbfounded. The guy is an alien, and I do think we need to stick with that descriptor in terms of like it being a nickname or whatever. I think LeBron called him an alien. That's just accurate. This is not something that I knew a human was capable of until finally seeing it on an NBA floor. You know, obviously I've looked at a plentiful amount of Wemby footage. Who the hell hasn't, especially if it's your job like it is for me. But to see it actually on an NBA floor surrounded by a bunch of actual NBA players against a team that was just in the NBA Finals, no less, made it very, very real. Things are about to be different. Yeah, that's it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye.
Yeah, Victor's different. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We have never seen anyone quite like Victor Wembanyama. All his abilities at his size, it is legitimately unreal what this kid is able to do and what we've already seen. And we haven't even actually started the official NBA season yet, baby. Yes. A lot more Victor Wembanyama for us all in the future. I really hope the kid stays healthy. I really hope he learns a lot, and I'm sure he will learn a lot under Greg Popovich's tutelage and with the San Antonio Spurs organization. I just really hope they don't suppress him too much and let the kid thrive, be him, while also learning how to be a better basketball player and learning how to elevate the team. But I'm really excited to see how his post game develops as it gets stronger, and I'm really excited to see how his ability to pass over, multiple defenders and, reading plays, reading player movement, as well as defensive shifts with player movement. I'm really curious to see how he adjusts all that and, become a better passer. And, Greg Popovich are going to preach those passing fundamentals to him. No question about that. So I think all this stuff will develop with time, and but like Rusty Bucket said, he already has a great natural feel from what we've seen. And he was right. The problems that I mentioned that could be problematic at times aren't major glaring problems. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, this is going to be this is going to be a problem. Not like that, but yeah, man, it's going to be fun watching this kid grow up. It's going to be fun watching this kid play, and really do wish him the best. And we'll be following him like we've been following him in the EuroLeague for the rest of his career, as long as his channel's alive, as long as I'm alive and healthy to push it, baby. We gonna be right here, Boo TV. You feel me? All right, y'all. Let me know what you think about it. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified. Check out our Victor Wembanyama playlist, and I'll catch you on the next one. We out, baby.